Kozłowska. Anna is sports campaign specialist at Open Cages, Poland. She's working on challenging the stereotypes surrounding plant-based diet in sports, and Anna will discuss some of the ways athletes can prove helpful in popularizing plant-based diet among audience. So Anna, if you are ready, you can start.
Yes, thank you very much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well. And I would just like to begin by saying that I am honored to be a part of this conference and to be able to be a speaker here and among so many inspiring people and activists and so many smart people. It's my first time at Career Conference, and I'm really happy to be here and really excited. So I'll tell you just a little bit about myself. My name is Ania Kozłowska, and as I was already said, I'm from Poland. I work for Otwarte Klatki in Poland, which is a part of Anima International. And Otwarte Klatki, so the Open Cages, is an organization that is focusing specifically on farmed animals. So the types of campaigns we do is welfare campaigns, investigations and interventions on factory farms, as well as legal work and lobbying for farmed animals. We also do corporate outreach, as well as work with businesses in order to help them improve their plant-based offers and make them more popular on the market. And help companies make their supply and production chains more animal friendly. So before I started working for Otwarte Klatki as an employee, I was a volunteer for over 5 years, and I did a variety of tasks. I managed a group of volunteers in one of the cities that we operate in, but mainly I coordinated a group of translators and provided linguistic support for our international activities. The sport campaign that I'm going to tell you a little bit about started in 2016, and I am a sport enthusiast myself, so I became naturally drawn to the campaign and got involved in it, first as a volunteer and later as an employee. About 5 months ago, I started working on the campaign full-time. So I will tell you just a short introduction to this campaign. I hope you see the whole slide. So the campaign is called Jasna Strona Mocy. It is named after the Star Wars reference and translates into English as the light side of the Force. The campaign aims to, on the one hand, promote plant-based diets among people who lead an active lifestyle, and on the other hand, it uses sport and athletes as a medium to communicate the benefits of plant-based diets, to challenge the stereotypes and myths surrounding these diets, to change the perception of plant-based diets, and to inspire people to make the switch to a more plant-based diet or a fully plant-based way of eating. So the campaign uses the potential of athletes as role models, or as people who are seen as strong, as popular, successful people who are healthy, athletic, and so on, and who are additionally known to follow very strict training regimes and therefore having very specific nutritional requirements and needs. So what was the thinking behind this campaign? Why did we decide to focus on sport and athletes in the first place? So there are many stereotypes surrounding plant-based diets, but the strongest ones probably would be, or one of the strongest ones would probably be the ones regarding men and sport. So you've probably all heard the saying that real men eat meat, and we probably all know that there are significantly fewer men than there are women on a plant-based diet. According to some studies, there are twice as many women on a plant-based diet than there are men. And probably there are many very complex reasons for this, which I'm not going to get into in detail. I will just mention a couple of them. So men are under an enormous social pressure to conform to a certain standard of masculinity, and it is often associated with eating meat in some sense. So compassion is more often regarded more as a feminine feature, as a woman's thing, than it is for men's thing. So it's maybe kind of uncomfortable for men to give up meat, considering the stereotypes that they are facing. On the other hand, there is some kind of comfort associated with eating meat. It is very important, considered as like, at least in Europe, in Eastern Europe or in Poland where I live, meat is very often considered a very important part of your diet, or a very important part of your meal, even of every any your meal. So a traditional Polish dinner, so to say, would be potatoes, a salad, and like the main thing, the central piece on your plate would be meat. So if there's no meat on your plate, then probably something is missing. So it is associated with some kind of comfort that if you eat it, you won't be hungry. If you eat it, you know that you've provided your body with everything it needs, all the nutrients that it needs. And also, let's not, like, we cannot deny that meat can be tasty, and people eat it also for the comfort of being able to eat the food that they like the taste of. So another, like, say, pressure men, but not only men, people are facing are related to their body image. So sometimes out of fear that you will not be able to work out in the way that you would like to, that you will not be able to be strong, or to have muscles, people reach for the ultimate source of protein that they consider meat to be. And one last thing I would like to mention is the fact that maybe the concept, or maybe not concept, but the name veganism or vegans, the words, are not very inclusive. And I think that there may be people who are not themselves vegan and don't have many vegans around them that consider vegans a different category of people, that, like, they may admit that vegans have some valid points, like they're right. They may admit that they may agree with vegans on some points, but they would say that, okay, but these are vegans and I'm not vegan, so I'm not going to do what they do. So yes, so that's it. So in our case, while men were the starting point, in general, when we're looking at the motivations people have for choosing a plant-based diet, there is a potentially large audience that is or may be motivated by reasons other than animal-related reasons. So I will focus on health here, so the health benefits. And this audience may, like this audience may be disinterested or in the animal welfare aspects, or even discouraged by the animal welfare or animal rights message, at least at first. Therefore, our campaigns as an animal rights organization, which focus on animal welfare, we talk a lot about animal suffering that we want to prevent. So these campaigns, and we as an animal rights organization, like, I see that there may be a potentially large audience that our traditional campaigns, like our main campaigns or our traditional way of communicating, might not get through to, or may even discourage them because we're activists, because we are animal rights advocates. So what can we do about it? So we can get frustrated, we can get angry, and I'm sure we've all been there, that we get frustrated by the fact that we have some valid arguments and we know that we're right, and people, even though we give them our arguments, they will not listen to us. So what can we do? We can change the way we talk about veganism. So in order to address the concerns of this challenging audience, I would say, we decided to start the sports campaign. So the campaign aiming to promote plant-based diets by using sport and athletes. And we decided to use the example of successful athletes who are living and breathing examples of the fact that giving up meat is not an obstacle to athletic performance. So we invited some athletes to become ambassadors of our campaign, and to show that plant-based diets are equally nutritional, and they can be the fuel for your sports performance, your sports success, just as good as a traditional diet. And on the other hand, we also wanted to show that the plant-based diet is popular among athletes, and and sports people choose this type of eating as well. So when you tell people that a certain sports person is vegan or vegetarian, they will say, yeah, okay. They often will admit that, okay, they are vegan, they are strong, they're successful, they're a champion, but they used to eat meat, and that's where all the results came from. So they used to eat meat, and they built all of their strength, all of their endurance, all of their muscles on this traditional diet, and now they went vegan and they're only using the foundation that they built on the traditional diet. Therefore, we decided that it would be a good idea to involve athletes as ambassadors who were vegan for a very, very, very long time, and at some point in their life took up sports and became really good at it and became very successful at sports. And in this way, we can show that you can start working out or like becoming a sports person from scratch on a vegan diet, and that you don't need to have this traditional diet past to build on. On the other hand, we also decided that it would be important to involve athletes who have been competing for many, many years. They, for example, have 10 years of training experience and have only been vegan for 1 or 2 years. And this allows us to show that plant-based diets are very popular among athletes, and that athletes do choose these diets, and they perform just as well after they've switched. And in general, ambassadors and athletes on plant-based diets allow us to show people that if this person who is very active and has a lot of trainings, and it requires a lot of discipline and a lot of effort, and if they can choose a plant-based diet, then you probably can do it too if you're just, for example, an amateur. Another thing we considered an important part of our strategy was to refrain from referring to the ethical or animal-related aspects of eating or not eating meat in our communication. As far as we would want people to care about animals in the same way that we do, we are targeting an audience that can probably potentially be interested more in the health benefits. So we decided that we should focus on the health benefits and talk about mostly about the health aspects, the performance-related aspects, and so on. The problem here is that an animal advocacy organization may discourage a certain audience from listening to what we have to say, even though that they, for example, may find interesting, might find the health benefits of plant-based diets interesting. when they hear that it's, for example, it's open cages talking about them, they might not listen to us because they might not be interested in animals that much. So in order to not to scare them away, not to discourage these people, we decided that we would separate the campaign from otwarte klatki, from open cages, and make it like a separate entity, so to say. So what we do, we have separate communication channels, we have separate social media channels, a separate website, and even if we send emails on behalf of the campaign, we use the email addresses that have the name of the campaign in the domain, not the name of the organization. And of course, we do not lie about the campaign not being Otwarte Klatki's campaign, but we do not openly advertise it. So, and we've been quite successful with this. And I think I consider this was a good idea, and we will keep doing this like separately. Another thing is that we want people to know that plant-based alternatives, plant-based options are for everybody. Vegan food is not only for vegans, it's for everyone. And we care very much that people choose vegan options as often as possible, preferably always on any occasion. But we try to be very open to our actually people who are our ultimate target audience, so meat eaters. So we try to be like, we try to have this sense of inclusivity, so try to not use judgmental communication and so on. If you've attended yesterday's lecture on communicating on the social media and communicating with haters, I think it's, in the sense, it's similar with us. What we're trying to do, we try to make people welcome, even regardless of their diet. So we were welcoming to vegans, vegetarians, flexitarians, and also meat eaters who are only considering reducing their meat consumption, because these are the people that we want to stay on our channels and to be with us, because these are the people that we ultimately want to make the switch into a different diet. And for this reason, we, in our communication, we usually use the term plant-based diet, not a vegan diet. And another thing that we care about very much is our credibility. We try to speak the voice of our authority figures in their respective fields, so medical doctors, nutritionists, dietitians, and so on. Because it's very different when a specialist tells you that a plant-based diet is okay and is just as good and it can be beneficial than when an animal rights activist tells you this. So we try to get authority figures on our side and try to use their authority to speak about what we have to say. And for the same reason, it is important to use scientifically backed claims to be treated seriously. And this, and especially the last 2 points, are related to some challenges that I would like to briefly touch upon. Some challenges that you may face when taking up the topic of sports and nutrition and targeting this specific audience. So we have to bear in mind that we're taking on a very difficult and very specific topic that requires a high level of very specific knowledge. So not only nutrition is like a very talking about nutrition requires specific knowledge, and talking about nutrition in sports requires even more specific knowledge. And when you think about people who are very much into sports, even if they're amateurs, they talk about nutrition, food, and diet all the time. So they talk about it among themselves, they read about it a lot, they're interested in it. So in a sense, even if they're amateurs, they become sort of experts on the topic. So if we want to talk to them, we also have to have a high level of knowledge, or have people on our teams who have this knowledge and can talk to them on the same level. It has like, because in sports very often it is that what you eat and how you eat can give you just this little tiny advantage over your competitors, just let you be just a step ahead of your competitors, and athletes do look for the ways to be just a bit better, because like the differences between the winner and number two can sometimes be very small, so they're looking for ways to improve their performance. And on the one hand, the fact that it's a very specific topic and that even amateurs sometimes become experts on it, and they know a lot, and then we have to have this knowledge to talk to them, it's challenging. But on the other hand, it's also a good thing, because when these people are looking for ways to improve their performance, they very often turn to diets and nutrition to find this little advantage. So I see this as them being more open to trying new things, and so maybe probably also more open to trying a plant-based diet to find this advantage over their competitors. And that is where we step in and where we talk to them, when we communicate, where we offer our support and knowledge. But as I said, in order to be able to speak with them, we have to be considered credible. And in order to be considered serious, like we have to have this credibility. And for this reason, as I mentioned before, it's good to have authority figures and experts on your side to support your claims. But there's another challenge related to partnerships with authorities or nutrition experts and so on. The position of these people very often depends on their reputation, and the reputation is something that they have built for many, many, many years, and also something that is very easily lost. So they are very careful about their reputation. So they would not want to be associated with groups, organizations, or people who use unscientific or controversial claims, because in that way they also lose their own credibility and their own reputation which they have built and which they very much depend on. So I would like to stress, you probably all know that, but I would only like to stress that obviously we all care about animals, and we would do anything to convince people to become vegans, to stop eating meat and so on. But we have to be very careful to double check all of the claims that we're using. So because there's a lot of information available on the internet, and sometimes it looks really credible, but it's not always true, because like plant-based diets, they can be beneficial, but the miraculous qualities of a vegan diet are not always supported by science. And this is what we have to always double check before we say this, in order not to use this credibility and in order not to lose these allies in these people who are specialists and experts. And the last point here that I would like to mention is the fact that the topic of nutrition and sport, of plant-based nutrition and sport, is very appealing to vegans. And while it is very good to have them on your side, to have them among your followers, for example, because they're advocates themselves, they become sort of advocates themselves because they talk to their friends and to other people, and they can say, hey, look, there's this campaign, there's this website, there's a lot of athletes who are on a plant-based diet, so maybe you could check it out as well. So it's good to have them, but they are ultimately not our target audience. So we have to be very careful not to get stuck with just this very narrow vegan community, because it's good to have them, but they are not what we're doing this for. So what we ultimately want to do and want to achieve is to change people's behavior. So in this case, to make them stop eating animals. This is a huge change for meat eaters, and it's an enormous and very difficult challenge for us. In such cases, we often tend to focus on educating people, on making them aware of the problem, of the issue, or of, for example, the fact that um, plant-based diets have many health benefits, and eating too much meat is associated with some health threats, for example. And I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the metaphor of the rider, the elephant, and the path. So I'm just going to briefly go through this. Um, so the rider represents the rational side of our mind. The elephant represents the emotional part in us, and the path represents the environment that we operate in. So in order to make the switch, so to change people's behavior, it's not enough to make people aware or let them know. People also need to want to change. And what is more, the change's behavior is more likely if the change is easy. So what we need to do is we need to direct the rider. So we need to speak to the rational side by providing knowledge. We need to motivate the elephant. So inspire people to want to change and shape the path in order to make change in behavior as easy as possible. And this is discussed in greater detail in this book that you can see the cover of on the screen. It's the book Switch by Chip and Dan Heath. I'm sure many of you have read it, but if you haven't, I do recommend it. It is a very worthwhile publication on implementing a lasting change of behaviors. And I found it very useful. So what does it mean in our case? What we do? So we want to be a source of knowledge and do away with the myths and the stereotypes surrounding plant-based diets. We want to show that it is just as good as a traditional diet when done properly, but also provide practical tips on how to, for example, replace animal-based products with equally nutritional plant-based products. On the other hand, we want to show that it is a change the change of diet is a change that many people make, that it's no longer anything weird, that it's becoming mainstream and it's very popular. It's popular among athletes who are role models, and as I said, they have very specific needs when it comes to nutrition. So a lot of people do it, athletes do it, and if they do it, you probably can do it too. Of course, we also want people to know that plant-based options are very tasty and they're becoming more and more widely available. But on the other hand, we also plan to work with the producers and companies in order to make this plant-based offer even more widely available, and so that the products satisfy the tastes and needs also of those people who are doing sports, who are very active. And I'm actually nearly done, but to conclude with, I would like to tell you about what we've learned from working with our ambassadors. So when we invite athletes to become ambassadors of the campaign, we ask them to fill out a questionnaire form. And we ask them about many things. We ask them about their sports career, about their sports achievements, about their inspirations, their role models, and so on, about their diets. And there's also one question about their motivation for going vegetarian or vegan, because we also have vegetarians as ambassadors. And it's very interesting because actually a couple of them have told us that at first, when they stopped eating meat, they decided that they wanted to do this because they wanted to see how this would affect their performance, how this would affect their well-being, and how they would feel, and if their training is going to be just as good, and if their sports results are going to be just as good. And only later, after they had not been eating meat for some time, they started to become interested in how animals are raised, and see how factory farming or farming of animals is hurting animals. So while their first step motivation was the health benefits or the sports performance related reasons, uh, the ethical motivation followed after they had stopped eating meat. So although this is of course only anecdotal evidence, maybe it is like true that admitting that animals suffer for our food, for example, uh, is easier when you'd already changed your behavior and you'd already know that you're no longer contributing to this suffering. So I think this is one of the things that we hope to achieve, to help people make the connection between their own well-being on a plant-based diet and the welfare of animals. So I just want to say that the campaign is now present in Poland, in Ukraine, and in Estonia. And you can see my email on the screen, and feel free to reach out to me if you're doing similar work around nutrition and sports in your country, or if you would like to start doing this. We could exchange experiences and talk about what works and what doesn't in your organization or your country. I would be very interested in finding out what ideas you have for covering this topic. And also we have some materials that we would be happy to share with you. Some of them have been already translated into English, for example. Others we can have translated if you would find them useful. So feel free to reach out. And thank you very much for attending. And that's all from me.
Thank you very much for interesting presentation. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can use Slido, and the link and further instructions you can find in the chat. And we already have some question. And the question is, what has been your biggest win in the campaign so far, and how did you get it?
I thought about it lately, and I think the biggest win actually happened when I wasn't very much involved in the campaign yet. So the previous coordinator, Włodek, managed to achieve this. And it was because I will have to give you a bit background. What we do with our ambassadors, we make videos with them, very short, a couple of minutes long, mini documentary films about where they talk about their trainings, about their diet, about how they became vegan or vegetarian, and what it has given them, like some personal story and so on. And we managed to get these videos to be published, to be included in the program of a TV platform that is screening in gyms all over Poland. So they are present in like a couple dozen cities, and they have a couple of hundred sports clubs and gyms where this platform is screening. So probably a couple of 100,000 people were able to see, like from our target audience, so people who are not vegans or vegetarians and are gym goers, that were able to see these videos while working out in the gym. And I'm not sure, because like I wasn't the one to be credited for this success as I see it, but I think we reached out to them and suggested that we can share this content for free if they agree to screen it in their on their platform. And it's really high quality content, so they agreed, and it happened.
Wow, that sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question is, yeah, how do you get influencers involved? Maybe how you contact them, etc.
Yeah. So at the beginning, when we first started, these were like some of us were also involved in like we're sports amateurs. We attended sports clubs and so on. So at first these were our friends or friends of friends that we knew were successful athletes, and when they are vegan and vegetarian, they very often care about animals as well. So they were really happy to agree and to support us. And now that we've become a bit bigger over the years, we just if they like we just reach out to them either on social media, on Facebook or on Instagram, or try to find someone who knows them or knows their manager to talk to them. So that's how we do it.
Okay. We have another question, this time from chat. It's, I think, based on the previous one. Where can we see the content?
Oh, uh, maybe I will join the chat and or maybe or where can I like we have a playlist on YouTube and
Mhm.
all of the videos are included there. I would have to find it to give you the link, but I don't know where I could post it.
If you have a link right now, you can post it here in the chat if
Yeah, I will
you
have to
can
look for it.
find it out. If
Yeah,
not,
I will. I will do
yeah,
it very quickly.
okay.
Oh, just give me a second.
Just quick reminder maybe that you are still sharing the the screen.
Okay, stop share. Yes, I stopped it right now. Thank you. I'm sharing the YouTube. I will share their YouTube link. But when we promote them, we mostly use our social media. Like Facebook is our main communication channel for these videos as well. So I think this should be the link for stop. Oh, okay. Okay, and this should be. I hope this works.
Okay, thank you. So the link for YouTube is right now in the chat. Thank you. Another question is, uh, do you feel the ambassadors for the sport campaign can be eventually engaged in another campaign, or did it happen already in the past?
Um, well, probably they can, I guess. uh, I can't think of an example actually. Mm, but for example, some of our ambassadors, one of the things that we do, we invite them to some of our events. For example, our vegan fairs. So that we are not the ones who talk about sports, but like sports people, actual sports people, are the ones who talk about sports. And I guess some of them have spoken at our events before they became our ambassadors, before the campaign even started. So this is an ongoing partnership, and I think it is possible to involve them in other campaigns as well.
But you are not focusing on this, like, okay, we know this sport person who is willing to help us with this campaign, so someone else can contact him.
Uh, yeah, I
Or
don't think it has happened, but yeah, we share contacts with other campaigns.
okay, thank you very much. If you have any further question, feel free to ask on Slido. Meanwhile, maybe I have a question. You also contact the people who are not like vegetarians, vegans, but maybe just like um, friendly to vegetarian vegan diet?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because this is something that I am really excited about doing in the future, like from now on, because I feel like, again, that vegans and vegetarians are very good examples, but also there probably maybe people that we might reach with the example of people who are not yet vegetarians or vegans, but are only reducing their meat consumption, or are choosing plant-based options very often, or are maybe like uh, taking a challenge of not eating of eating vegan for some time, and maybe these athletes who are non-vegans may be the way to reach yet another, like a wider audience. So I think this is a direction that I'm very excited about taking, and very hopeful. I have high hopes about this.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we are out of the questions.
Cool.
Yeah. So again, thank you for a really interesting presentation.
Thank you.